Sign it, Adrian. $5,000. That's my final offer. My name is Adrian Cole, 45 years old. I co-founded Northline Electric with my partner, Marcus Hale. For 8 years we poured everything we had into that company. 16-hour days, missed birthdays, and weekends sacrificed for progress. What began as 3 guys and a rented warehouse in Portland had grown into a 40-person operation with contracts across the Pacific Northwest. Now we sat across from each other in the conference room, the same one where we used to celebrate new deals, and there was nothing left of that brotherhood. Marcus had his lawyer behind him, a silent vulture waiting for the kill. On the table between us sat the buyout agreement. $5,000 for my half of a company worth $4 million? I asked, staring at the paper. You heard me, Marcus said, calm and deliberate. Check clause 7.3 in our partnership agreement. If one partner wants to dissolve the company, the other has 30 days to match the offer or accept it. I'm offering you $5 grand. You can't afford to buy me out, so either take the deal or we liquidate. I picked up the paper. My hands didn't shake. I read clause 7.3 twice. He was right. The loophole had been there from day one, hidden in plain sight, because back then we trusted each other. Back then we were friends. So this is how it ends? I asked quietly. Business is business, Adrian, he said. Nothing personal. But everything about it was personal. 6 months earlier, I started noticing changes. Marcus had grown distant, cold. He stopped including me in project bids. Client calls started going directly to his office instead of mine. When I questioned it, he shrugged it off. Just trying to streamline operations, he said. I should have seen it coming. It started with Landon, Marcus's son. Fresh out of business school, 23, sharp suit, slick smile, all buzzwords and confidence. We need to modernize, he said at his first meeting, talking like he'd built the company himself. Less hand-holding, more numbers. Efficiency over loyalty. He talked, Marcus nodded, and I watched years of sweat and trust start to dissolve under a wave of spreadsheets. Marcus used to be the kind of guy who'd roll up his sleeves and help wire a panel if we were shorthanded. Now, he wore designer watches and called our crew human resources. 3 months later, Landon had an office. My office used to be next to Marcus's. One day, I found Landon sitting there, feet up on my desk going through files. He looked up like he owned the place. What are you doing? I asked. Organizing, he said, not even bothering to look up. Your filing system's a mess. I told him to get out. He smirked. You don't own this office, Adrian. Dad does. That night, Marcus called me. You're being territorial, he said. Landon's just trying to help. By going through my contracts without permission? You're overreacting. That was the start of the end. We landed a big project in Salem that quarter, an industrial retrofit worth $500,000. It should have been my crew's job. I'd built that client relationship over years of late-night emergency calls and handshakes in the rain. Marcus reassigned it to one of his new teams, led by Landon. He didn't even tell me. I found out when the client called me, confused why I wasn't overseeing it. I swallowed my pride, told him everything was fine, and hung up. That night, over dinner, my wife Elena saw it on my face. What happened? She asked. Marcus gave the Salem job to Landon. She put down her fork. He's pushing you out. I shook my head. He wouldn't. She looked at me with the kind of quiet sadness that only comes from seeing someone refuse to believe the truth. Partners don't treat each other like that. I wanted to argue. But deep down, I knew she was right. Now, sitting across from Marcus and his lawyer, all that betrayal had crystallized into one number, $5,000. He stood up after delivering his offer, adjusting his tie like the conversation was already over. You've got 72 hours, he said. After that, I'll file for dissolution. We both lose. He left the pen on the table and walked out. I stayed there, staring at the city skyline through the conference room window. The crews below were loading trucks, joking, laughing, people I'd hired, trained, supported. Marcus saw them as payroll numbers. I saw them as people. Every paycheck we signed represented a family. Every contract was a promise I'd personally made. That night, I sat in my truck and stared at the building I'd helped build. I realized something. Marcus might own the paperwork, but I owned the trust. I called Simon Reed, an old high school friend who'd become a lawyer. Can he do this? I asked. Legally? Yeah, Simon said. That clause gives him leverage. You can either accept or force liquidation. But if you liquidate, you'll both lose. You'll walk away with maybe a few $100,000 tops. And if I accept? You get $5,000 and lose everything. I stared at my father's old level on the shelf above my workbench. He'd built his reputation one house at a time, never cutting corners. He used to say, "A man's name is worth more than his logo." I took a deep breath. What would you do? Simon sighed. I'd take the $5,000 and start over. You've got the skills, Adrian. You can rebuild. He was right. I could. But Marcus didn't know that. So instead of calling bankers, I started calling people, clients, suppliers, and subcontractors. I didn't trash Marcus. I didn't need to. I just asked questions. Who do you call when things go wrong? Who do you trust to show up at 3 a.m.? Who built this relationship? Every answer came back the same, me. By the next night, I had registered a new business, Iron Peak Electric. A fresh start. Same service, same dedication, without the politics. The next morning, I called Marcus. I'll take your offer, I said. There was a pause. Smart move. When do you want to sign? Tomorrow. 10 a.m. When I hung up, Elena appeared in the doorway. You're really doing it? He thinks he's buying the company, I said. He's not. He's buying the shell. She smiled. Then make sure he learns what loyalty really means. The next morning, I signed the papers. Marcus shook my hand with that fake warmth of his, the kind that doesn't reach the eyes. His lawyer smiled, thinking they'd just pulled off the perfect heist. I walked out without looking back. I sat in my new rented office, a small workshop south of the city, half the size of our old warehouse, with peeling paint and a leaky roof. It didn't matter. It was mine. By the end of week 1, Iron Peak had 12 contracts lined up. Word spread faster than I expected. People didn't want Northline, they wanted Adrian Cole. I hired 5 of my old crew members. By week 2, that number doubled. They left Marcus willingly, some without even asking for raises. Boss, one of them said, we just want to work for someone who gives a damn. Within a month, Iron Peak was running full throttle. Trucks were on the road, projects were live, and for the first time in months, I slept through the night. Rumors started reaching me. Marcus was struggling. Clients were pulling contracts. Vendors were demanding upfront payments. The new crews, led by Landon, couldn't maintain quality. Mistakes piled up. Delays cost money. Reputations shattered. One of my old clients, Tom Sanderson, called me. Marcus's kid messed up the Salem job, he said. Wiring's wrong, inspectors failed the site twice. I tried to sound neutral. That's unfortunate. Tom chuckled. You available to take over? I hesitated. You know I started a new company, right? Yeah. That's why I called. That was the moment I realized Marcus hadn't just lost a partner, he'd lost his credibility. 3 months later, Northline Electric filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. Marcus tried to blame me publicly, claiming I stole clients. But contracts spoke for themselves. Every single one was legally signed with my new company, all within my rights after the buyout. I never spoke against him. I didn't have to. The truth traveled quietly, from one job site to another, from vendor to vendor, until Marcus's name became a warning whispered in the industry. Landon left town shortly after. Rumor was he took a job in Seattle. Marcus sold his house to cover debts. I didn't celebrate, I didn't need to. Karma doesn't need applause. 6 months later, Iron Peak had grown to 35 employees. We were busier than ever, operating out of a new facility in Beaverton. The place was bright, open, filled with energy. I made a rule, no closed doors. Everyone had a voice. One morning, I found myself standing in front of our crew before a new project kickoff. 8 years ago, I lost something I thought I could never rebuild, I said. But what I realized is this: companies don't make people. People make companies. You're not just employees. You're family. They clapped. Someone shouted, Iron Peak Strong. It became our slogan. Later that day, I found a small envelope on my desk. Inside was a note written in my wife's handwriting. Proud of you. You didn't just rebuild, you rose higher. Love, E. I smiled. For the first time in a long time, I felt peace. One afternoon, as the sun poured through my office window, my receptionist buzzed me. Adrian, there's someone here to see you. I looked up. Who? She hesitated. Marcus Hale. I froze for a second, then sighed. Send him in. He looked different when he walked in. Smaller somehow. His suit didn't fit right, his eyes carried dark circles, his confidence gone. Adrian, he said quietly. Marcus. He looked around. Nice setup. You've done well. I have, I said simply. He sat down, uninvited. I lost everything, he said after a moment. The house, the contracts. Landon moved away. I didn't expect it to go this way. I leaned back. You built your empire on shortcuts, Marcus. They never hold. He nodded slowly. I came to apologize. I was angry, jealous maybe. You connected with people in a way I never could. Apology accepted, I said. But I don't think you came just to say that. He gave a weak smile. You're right. I need work. Anything. Consultant, site supervisor, hell, I'll take field jobs. For a long moment, I just looked at him. The man who'd once been my brother in business, who'd betrayed me for greed, now sat across from me, humbled. Finally, I said, we don't have openings right now, Marcus. But if something comes up, I'll call. He nodded, stood, and extended his hand. Fair enough. I shook it. His grip was weaker than I remembered. When he left, I stood by the window, watching him walk away down the parking lot. A small part of me pitied him. But a larger part felt something else, closure. That night, Elena and I sat on the porch, watching the sun set behind the pines. You saw him today, she said. I did. How did it feel? Strange, I admitted. He looked broken. She took my hand. You did what you had to do. I nodded. It's funny. He thought $5,000 would buy my silence, my loyalty, my name. But the truth is, he sold his own integrity for that same price.
Elena smiled.
And you? What did you buy? I looked out at the horizon, the lights of Iron Peak glowing in the distance. Freedom, I said. And a second chance to do it right. Iron Peak Electric was now one of the fastest growing independent contractors in Oregon. We just landed a $2.3 million project refurbishing a downtown skyscraper, the kind of contract Northline used to dream of. At the groundbreaking ceremony, a journalist from the Oregon Ledger asked me, Mr. Cole, how did you manage to rise from such a difficult setback? I smiled. By remembering that business isn't about power, it's about people. You can lose a company, but if you keep your integrity, you can build anything again. She scribbled that down, nodded, and walked away. I watched the cranes swing against the morning sky and felt something deep, quiet, and powerful settle in my chest. I'd kept my father's promise, to build something that would outlast me. Months later, I received a letter. No return address. Inside was a check, $5,000. Beneath it, a note in Marcus's handwriting. You were right. It was personal. Thank you for proving what loyalty really means. I placed the check in my desk drawer and never cashed it. Some debts aren't financial. People ask me sometimes if I regret taking the deal. If I wish I'd fought harder for Northline. I tell them the truth. I didn't lose a company that day. I shed a skin that had outgrown me. $5,000 didn't buy me out, it bought me back. Because sometimes, losing everything is the only way to remember who you really are. You just heard a story of betrayal, survival, and quiet revenge. If it left you thinking, hit like, share it forward, and subscribe for more true emotional stories that'll stay with you long after they end. Every click helps another story find its voice.